Hey there guys, Spexxy here, bringing you another hot slice of gaming history. And today's video is one for you control freaks out there, as I will be taking a good hard look at the history of the gaming controller. And for me, that history began way back in 1958 with what I considered to be the granddaddy of all video games, Tennis for Two. However, I feel that before I can really get into any of that, I really need to delve back just a little bit further to 1947 and give a quick mention to the inspiration for Tennis for Two, the truly incredible
Cathode Ray Tube Amusement Device.
Yeah, I know right, such a catchy title. Invented by Thomas T. Goldsmith Jr. and Estill Ray Mann. Wait, what? Ray Mann? This incredible machine incorporated an oscilloscope, the likes of which was found in World War II radar detectors of the day, which Goldsmith himself had previously worked on, and it required the player to aim a dot of light projected onto the screen by a cathode ray tube, which represented an artillery shell. The aim of the game was quite simple, to hit plastic targets which were overlaid on top of the display by adjusting the trajectory of the shells using analog knob controls and switches, the hits being recognised by mechanical means. The patent for the cathode ray tube amusement device, man I still can't get over that awesome name, was submitted by Goldsmith and Mann in 1947, but the game itself never went into production, with only the prototype unit ever being made and no working example in existence to reference. The unit worked with purely analog electrical and mechanical parts, meaning that there was no computer at the heart of it all and no kind of memory. This, combined with its reliance on the plastic overlays, means that this project falls far short of the mark for being considered a true video game. However, by the very fact that I've included it in today's video, I do acknowledge its pivotal role in gaming history in influencing the generations of true video games that followed it. And for naming this guy. 3 years later, in Toronto, Dr. Joseph Cates unveiled Bertie the Brain to the eager visitors of the 1950 Canadian National Exhibition, leaving them stunned and amazed, and for some very good reasons. This monstrous beast stood 4 metres or nearly 13 foot tall, and if that wasn't intimidating enough, the aim of this giant machine was to challenge human participants to a game of tic-tac-toe, or noughts and crosses if you're a common English boy like me. All of the predictions and moves made by Bertie were calculated by computer, hence the machine's huge proportions. Yeah, you couldn't exactly fit a computer in your pocket back in them days. Players input their choice of square on the grid by means of pressing a corresponding button on the control panel in front of Bertie's main display. Play would continue with alternate moves being made by both Bertie and the player until 3 in a row or deadlock was achieved, deciding a winner of a tie game. And although good old Bertie was a computer and that's a good start, the display itself merely consisted of 9 glass panels with neon lights behind them to display either an O or an X. Therefore this does not exactly constitute video, as no kind of monitor was used to produce visual output. So once again, although groundbreaking for its time and definitely worth a mention in terms of gaming history, not technically a video game. During the following few years, several other contenders were designed, most notably Nimrod by John Makepeace Bennett, Oxo by A.S. Douglas and Drafts by Christopher Strachey, all of which used almost room-sized computers to program their turn-based games on, which again incorporated early AI for humans to play against. And there were many other similar projects in laboratories and universities worldwide at around that same time. And while these were all worthy of a mention in gaming history, they're not widely considered to fall into the pigeonhole of video games for various reasons. Firstly, the lack of monitor for projects such as Nimrod and Bertie, and for not having real-time updating screens, as was the case with Oxo, Drafts and many more. However, I would strongly argue that point, as any form of CRT, whether updating in real time or not, could definitely be considered video in my book, thus making Oxo a possible contender for the first real video game, technically speaking. And I do say technically speaking, as the one thing to remember here is that all of these early examples, whether you accept them or not, were all designed with one thing in mind: to impress. Whether it be to showcase new hardware achievements or as some sort of scientific research project, none of these were really ever made to be enjoyed as such, but rather to demonstrate the power and potential of the new computer age. And this is a defining thing here for me. I feel that fundamentally the role of any video game should firstly be to be enjoyable, though I am thoroughly aware that many games may have failed dismally at achieving this over the years. What I'm saying here though is that rather than being created simply for demonstration purposes, in my opinion a real video game should be made with the player and more importantly fun in mind. Which brings me back neatly to 1958 and Tennis for Two, a true masterpiece of electrical engineering developed by William Higginbotham and Robert Dvorak. Although it was without a doubt still a showcase of kinds, it took pride of place in the Brookhaven National Laboratory, New York, designed to be played and enjoyed by visitors during public days, and it was a massive success, seeing queues lining up for hours just to give it a shot. Again, this machine used an oscilloscope, much like the cathode ray tube amusement device, oh yeah! Only this time there wasn't a single overlay in sight. Instead of this, all of the action was displayed directly on the oscilloscope itself. And by action I mean that there was a ball, or rather a dot of light, which travelled in an arc from one side of the screen to the other, bouncing off the floor with programmed simulated physics. There was also a net in the middle of the screen which the ball would sometimes hit, and the player controlled all of this by using a pair of handheld control boxes. Meaning that Tennis for Two makes the history books with 3 gaming firsts. The first true video game, in my opinion, the very first multiplayer video game, and the first ever video game controller. Albeit simple and nothing revolutionary in terms of the control methods themselves, simple dials and buttons had already been used by other projects, but these controls were held in a small box that could easily be held in the hand and was attached to the machine via wires, allowing for a freedom of movement and a much more comfortable playstyle. And they did the job just fine, enabling the players to hit the ball and change the trajectory of their returns. This for me marks the beginning of the video game revolution, and things start to pick up rather rapidly from this point onwards, with many more mainframe and university games being created, and of course the birth of the coin-op or arcade machine, with the likes of Computer Space and many more. And whilst these came with some truly unique control methods over the years, the aim of this video is to look at handheld controllers specifically, not control panels. I want to see how we get from this to this. So moving on forward to 1962, and Steve Russell and Peter Sampson design an epic video game for the DEC Pt1. This mainframe computer was revolutionary at the time for having brought the form factor down from the size of your average living room to about the size of a family car, and it only weighed in at a mere 730 kilograms, and that's about the same weight as your average farmyard cow. Other features consisted of a circular viewing screen much larger than the oscilloscopes previously used and capable of displaying vector style graphics, and it all run at a staggering processor clock speed of a breakneck 187 kHz. All of this of course made it the perfect games machine, and thus Space War was born. A simple game for 2 players who each controlled a ship, the Needle and the Wedge, in an intense dogfight set within the gravity well of a star. The star itself sits directly in the middle of the screen, and the players must attempt to kill each other using an asteroid-style rotation thrust and hyperspace control, whilst avoiding direct collision with either each other or being sucked into the star, although its simulated Newtonian physics did mean that speed boost could be achieved by using the star's gravitational pull to your advantage to create a slingshot manoeuvre. Now where have I seen that before? The Space War controllers are pretty basic looking and not totally dissimilar to those used with Tennis for Two, in that they incorporate both switch and dial input methods and are handheld for comfort and ease of use. But where Space War differed from previous games was in the fact that it was not only playable on just one machine. This game could be made to work on any PDP-1 computer, making it the very first video game to be distributed. And it soon began to be shared among the many institutions and universities lucky enough to own or have enough space for their own PDP-1, though this was of course still a far cry from general public access or gaming for the masses. And so I'm going to leave this episode right here, on the brink of a new video game revolution. The home consoles are coming, and with them a whole host of new controllers. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, then why not spank the hell out of that thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe for more retro goodness. I've been Spexxy, you've been amazing, and I look forward to looking backwards with you again in the next episode. See you soon, bye for now.